Did you like it? So I spent 11 nights playing.
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
And we find ourselves once more amid the towering stacks of your library, where things have returned to normal, and, I think maybe they returned to normal a little too quickly.
It's been quite a bit of effort to get everything organized and make sure everything's in its proper place after the library raptors have been having their run off the place. They're not really much in, putting books back where they're supposed to go.
No, this is actually what I wanted to talk to you about, because while I agree that it was important to return the fortifications of the visitor center, which is sort of a book fort, back to their proper shelving according to the Jew imperial system, I do feel like we've sort of brushed over the incredible service that the Velociraptors in general, and Guinevere in particular, did for us in general, and me in particular.
How so?
What I interpreted as their attacks.
Right. As in they were defending you. Yeah, no, I see that.
Against a force that they couldn't communicate to me, and then ultimately wound up dragging me to hell and tried to do this podcast with you.
It's like you have a very strange concept of hell, but to each to their own.
Yeah. What can I say?
Hi. Oh no, you're not supposed to say that on a train, are you?
Exactly.
No eye contact, no smiling.
God, how did people do it before headphones? I guess they had newspapers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no newspapers in hell either. You just had to sort of sit there.
Well, there's that, yeah.
So all this time, it must have been incredibly frustrating, certainly for my bestie Guinevere, the Velociraptor, just catching everybody up on the unnecessary lore spinning around this literary review podcast, but she must have been very, very frustrated that I was resisting her attempts to rescue me.
Have you been trying to make amends?
I've been thinking about how best to do this. And I kind of want to throw a Velociraptor party, and I wondered if you could help me figure out something that they'd enjoy and understand as something nice that I was doing for them. I had a few ideas that we can
just rip open a duvet and spread it around as nesting material for when that time of the year arrives. But
see, I don't know anything about their breeding or nesting season. So maybe I also thought of getting some ducks, but that would just be a bloodbath.
Right. Well,
they definitely enjoy that. They seem to be
really enjoying the ducks. Can you order ducks online?
I don't know. I hadn't gotten to that part yet. I kind of rejected it out of hand because another bloodbath.
You can probably order duck eggs, and then you'd have to incubate them themselves. Maybe you can slip them in with the Velociraptors and see what happens if a duck hatches from a Velociraptor in a nest.
That would be a very interesting social experiment for definite. But I was thinking maybe something that I could do by next week.
Oh,
by the
let's see.
Because I feel like time has already passed, and you know how when a pet has misbehaved, it's important to discipline them immediately. Otherwise, they don't understand the relationship between the.
I suppose reward goes the same way. That's why they have the little clicker things. It's like first you associate the clicker with the reward, and then the clicker itself becomes the reward.
Yes, which was incredibly poorly used in Jurassic World, where he just sort of used it as a way to gather attention and kept clicking, and that's not how you do it.
No, that's not how it works.
I know people who make the claim that they can, with a smart corvid, they can get them to respond to click trading within an hour and a pop sort of seed.
Speaking of corvids, did you read the article about the guy here in the Netherlands who actually taught the crows and stuff to gather cigarette butts? And he built a machine that rewards them with little treats for cigarette butts. Once you train them into it and you put that machine in a park, they'll just collect the cigarette butts, drop them in the machine, and they'll
dispense treats.
Dispense the treats.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
I had seen videos of corvids, of course, the species of birds that are known for incredible intelligence. Let me see, ravens, crows, jackdaws. I think magpies.
Don't know about magpies. I don't know if they're the same species. But,
I don't know, but they're and for incredibly complex social relationships, including gift giving. Oh, there's one case where a young girl who frequently fed blackbirds in her neighborhood, and they took to leaving presents for her, and just collecting cool shiny things that were for her that she.
I think there was even one guy who started rewarding them more for money. For one of them bought a coin or something, he started he gave him a huge reward, and then they actually started bringing him back coins that they found across.
Nice.
Now, if only you can get them to bring you a wallet full of cash or something, but I guess there's not that many of those lying around.
No. Besides, they're clever enough that they'd start actually stealing wallets from people.
Not my problem.
No, I understand that. But can we come up with anything that the Velociraptors would similarly enjoy? So I mean, they are very clever. They are very theatrical. They enjoy like dress up.
Maybe a like one of those cat condos, but then sized for Velociraptors. And
now,
like,
what's you say cat condo? Like I'm supposed to understand what that is.
Cat tree.
No, you're doing it again. So cat tree.
Raffia wrapped poles with boxes and hammocks. You know?
Oh, that's interesting.
You buy one for a lot of money, and the cat's more interested in the box it came in.
No, obviously they're cats.
Build a little Velociraptor fort or something, or like a little homestead which they can enjoy, maybe with a little jacuzzi and a hammock. And
see, now that's interesting because building it vertically, that's something that I can do for them that they can't necessarily do for themselves.
No, build it all. It's like something. I mean, they're pretty much limited to nests. So I suppose that like anything that like involves different levels and complex things like tying knots.
Oh, that's a good idea. Because they do have fairly articulate little claw hands, but they are little claw hands.
Yeah, and lack opposable thumbs and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean they can figure out doors and stuff. I mean, if it was a knob door, then they'd be SOL.
Right, and I'm thinking of like getting rid of the touchpad security doors and going back to good old fashioned keys because.
Oh, goody! I kind of want a jangling set of keys as a librarian. That would be really fun. I could have it like on my belt. I could fuss with it at every door, even though I know which one is which, and I can sort of mutter to myself. And
attach a short, stout rope to it and have kind of a flail in case of emergencies.
Huh. All right.
Kind of like a spiked male flace. No, wait.
Male flace?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's between a flail and a mace, you know, flace.
Yeah. Oh, no, obviously, being Dutch people, we have a preference for the ploertedooier.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is a medieval weapon that bears some explaining, and the closest I can get is to, like, imagine one of those bicycle pumps, right, with a cylinder and sort of a plunger handle that you have to plunge in. Except the plunger handle is then weighted, and imagine holding it by the cylinder so you can sort of swing it out, and then it telescopes out, and there's a weight that can knock someone on the
Give
head.
you a good whack, yeah.
Yeah, like actually like crack the brain pan.
Does that actually increase?
Yes.
The influence?
Yes, it does. Your ability to impart force upon this weight is evenly spread out over the course of your swing. Because there is a certain limit to how fast you can swing, right?
Yes.
So normally when you have a weighted bat, like you bring it up to speed, and then after that, even though you have strength in your muscles, you can't impart more force because it's going at maximum speed.
Yeah.
And in this case, because the lever extends, because the weight extends further from your hands, any force that you add doesn't increase the speed, but can increase the lever.
Right.
And so you can transfer more energy.
No, I understand. Very clever, yes.
And the funnest part about it is that it's called a ploertedooier, which is like a dickhead killer.
Pretty much.
Like a ploert is a dipshit.
Rude
person. An asshole.
Yeah.
A jerk. Speaking of jerks, what do we have in store for our readers this week?
Well,
what a good transition.
That'll work. It's a book by Geoffrey Lord. It's one of the Richard Blade series. Or Dick Blade, as
Dick
we say.
Blade!
I've
been looking forward to these for so long.
And this one's is The Jewel of Tharn, or maybe Tharn's Jewels, but that seems to be a little bit...
Yeah. So, credit where credit is due, even though this cover had sort of circulated among our shortlist for a while, it was our good friends over at GoodShowSir, the inimitable resource for great fantasy and sci-fi and horror genre books. You can find them over at goodshowsir.co.uk, who've just been a fantastic source of inspiration for us. They wondered aloud, how long will it be until Cover My Ass does a Dick Blade book? Well, here we are.
Yes, it's been like kicking around in our library for quite a while now.
And we were like, do we dare?
Oh, I think we definitely should.
I think we do. And thanks to our friends over at GoodShowSir, we are doing so now. And also, friend of the library, X-Indiv, contributed the back cover that we had a hard time finding. So we should describe what's on the cover. So very big is printed Richard Blade, which of course is the titular character.
Let's just call him Dick, shall we?
Dick Blade is that's how everyone refers to him. And then the Jewel of Tharn, and then we see a near-naked gentleman in the process of throwing a spear.
So I'm thinking it's more of a hero pose. I mean, generally involved in spear throwing, there's a little bit of forward momentum, which is kind of hard with a lady, or a man for that matter, clinging to your loins.
As she is here.
Yes, striking like Arrow of Athena, and well, no, right.
Oh, that's a...
yes.
That's like Mexico reference? Yes. I was going to say Babylon 5 because that's what I've been rewatching lately, but no, there's not a lot of Greek mythology in there. A lot of Arthurian mythology, though.
They do like their rangers.
Yeah, but even like Lanier is a very Lancelotian character.
Is he? Which one?
Well, Lancelot specifically, like he's a noble knight deeply in love with like Delaine is his Guinevere.
I suppose that makes sense. She is kind of like has the relationship going with the captain, I suppose,
as Guinevere does with Arthur.
Yes.
And like nonetheless,
and therefore
Lancelot's love for her is
unrequited love.
Far from chivalrous. Well, I think in the Arthurian cycle, it's
everybody was getting it on with everybody there. So
that depends on like which point in the Arthurian cycle you sort of enter, because those stories were written over the span of literally centuries. Same with Robin Hood.
Like, probably longer than that.
Yeah, and new stories were added or forgotten, and we kind of compress them into what we consider the canon of the Arthurian cycle or the Robin Hood story, as the case may be. But like people had
there's generally a lot of magic in the Robin Hood series, with the exception of the British adaptation from the end of the 80s, which I tremendously enjoyed.
Oh, the Channel 4 ITV, like it wasn't on the BBC.
Wasn't it BBC? Oh.
I don't think it was. The Robin of Locksley.
There was some magic and stuff in there. Not high on special effects, but very well executed, I'd say.
Actually, I wonder how much of that was in the story, because you had the mythical figure of Herne, the forest god.
Yes.
Was there a conflict between like paganism and Christianity as a force?
Not specifically, I don't think
but
so.
He gained his prophecies from Herne,
that's true.
represented as a stag.
Yeah, the stag-headed hunter might have been a headdress, which was stag.
Yeah.
It was kind of like always like in shadows and vague and stuff like that.
Yes, and with soft focus.
Massively backlit by...
beautiful. So
gorgeous.
And his more friend / counterpart / rescuer, Nazir.
Yes, that's the one.
It was very, very cool as well.
Amazing series. Watch it. It was series 2, I think they replaced the main character because he died at the end of the first series, and they basically reinserted the new Robin Hood as like Robin Hood was more of a trope or a role rather than an actually person. Like anyone could be Robin Hood.
Sort of like Batman.
Well, Batman's a little bit more specific, but yeah, especially the character of Robin Hood is whoever is filling the role, being Herne's agent
on the mortal plane. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
Well, not so with the Dick Blade novels, where it's really about Mr. Richard here.
Yes. You haven't read the synopsis yet.
That is correct. Thank you to a friend of the library, ex-Indiv, who contributed the missing page of the back of the book. So the synopsis is: it is the Dark Ages. The church has banned books, beauty, and bare buns. Dick Blade and his magic-singing spear must save their nudist colony from the encroaching Crusaders, who wish to crush their peaceful ways. Will he convince the local abbots to forsake the cloth, or will the changing seasons force Dick to muffle his cry for freedom?
Yeah. I think that's a really well-written synopsis.
Oh, me too.
It really paints the picture of the entire book.
Sets up the stakes. Yeah, so even though it takes a little bit before we get to the encroaching Crusaders, because it does start off with this nudist colony on a sort of like I don't know if it's supposed to be truly historic.
I think they were like just playing into the whole German thing about naturism and stuff like that.
And I think they still are to this day. Like,
yes.
Saunas are, like, they're not just clothing optional, kind of, like, any kind of bathwear is a little weird.
Yeah, generally mixed gender as well, no hassle, just like casual, like in any Wellnessraum or something like that, then it's like, it's...
I really like that about the sort of... I talked before about the difference between nude and naked, and possibly like the third condition, naked. Where it's just a matter of wearing clothes versus whether it's appropriate to wear clothes, whether it's and if you're in a condition of nudity where you're just not wearing clothes, and that's not a big deal. As soon as you start wearing clothes, it's like sort of Donald Duck wearing pants. Then suddenly, he's one of those sex weirdos now, just by being more modest.
Yes. It's always weird when in a lot of those cartoons, it's like he usually wears his vest.
Yes.
But when he goes swimming, he wears a full bathing suit.
Or just boxers, which is just super weird. So
it's
now
just like
nipples out, but
everything reversed. But yes, it's the nudist colony on Petticoat Lane which sets the scene for this novel, with Dick Blade walking around and surveying his, well, not really his domain, but he's kind of seen as the big, seen as the big man there. I mean,
well, they certainly like support him in that. It is men are quite rare in this nudist colony, and certainly men of a fit age. He very proudly contributed a name to the colony, after his experience with Burning Man, the intergalactic festival that we know, which kind of suggests to me that maybe this is one of those future histories. He called it the Buns and Burners.
Buns and Burners. Well, actually, Burning Man in medieval Europe was usually burning woman, and it's more about witch burning, but, that's...
Oh, no, I'm sure that wasn't the case here. I'm sure that this was a much more positive role model society.
Let's go with that.
No, you had the Wicker Man. The Wicker Man was
I suppose that was Burning Man. It's like usually someone inside there being burned as a sacrifice.
Oh, wait a minute. I was more sort of thinking about the Long Man. If you know what that is, that's one of those chalk carvings in like a whole. No, it's like a whole hill. You know how you have Huffington Horse?
Oh, right, those ones. Yes,
yeah, gigantic.
But he's got a bit of a tackle and rod.
And the Long Man's so known for. I mean, he's a giant hill drawing with a pretty substantial assets there. It's a long road up the Long Man.
I guess it's just wall carvings in Pompeii are vulgar to say the least.
That was graffiti.
Same difference, but like
literally, that was like illegal wall paintings.
Yeah, but you think that the people who started that thing on the hill would actually have permission? I'll bet you a bunch of lads just got drunk and went like, "Oh, you know what happens when we cut up the turf here and we throw it out? It's like you get this white chalk underneath. And like, if we could make a huge man of there, giving them like gigantic chalk, everybody in the village would see it and they couldn't do anything about it."
Oh, it's like that gentleman. Oh, I forget where he is, but it was someone who complained a lot about like potholes in the roads of his constituency.
Yes.
And since it was being continually ignored, he took to drawing penises in graffiti around potholes.
And then suddenly they started getting fixed much quicker.
Yeah, because we've got to fill that in so that you don't.
Although knowing the city council, they just get another guy with another can of spray paint and just paint them over and like be done with it.
And make it sort of a cartoon man with a huge nose.
It shows clever initiative.
So I can understand why his contributions to the Buns and Burners were appreciated, because here's the thing that I find with queer and kink communities in general, in my limited experience with them, like they're incredibly sociable and well organized. Like something like the BDSM community, the bondage and dominance, like. In the popular imagination, a lot of people think of bullshit like 50 Shades of Grey and that kind of domination, but it's all about talking about your feelings.
Safe, sane, and sensible.
Yeah.
Yes, and like incredibly really hot scene, finished up now, let's go have a cup of tea and talk about our feelings.
Yes, exactly, because it's and like having whole classes about tying people up and just how it feels and what you talk about beforehand. It's just this incredible like sense of communication. Yes. So no wonder that they have committees for everything.
Yes. Of course, the most important one being the Privy Council.
Yeah, well, obviously. I mean, latrine technology is the foundation for urbanization in general.
And not to the Romans?
Yeah, certainly, like, roads are cool, but have you tried toilets? Like, that's what makes a city. You know what a cloaca is, right?
Yes.
That's the anatomical feature of some non-mammalian species where that's reproductive and waste at the same time. Cloaca means sewer.
Okay.
Which is kind of a gross way to look at it, but yeah, like just all of it, like eggs, sperm, waste, urine, feces, all of it just goes through that one passage. Okay, stuff to learn, but in the meantime, on Petticoat Lane, the Privy Council is of course the most important of the many committees, because like that is an indispensable resource with which no negotiation is possible. Same with like I believe it's the garbage men, or whatever the correct term is, of major cities who are forbidden from unionizing because a strike by garbage pickup people would just be worse than the police going on strike.
Unless they do it in Italy, where the mafia is like firmly in charge of the waste disposal.
Oh, is it?
It's like then, that's the whole problem in Naples. Occasionally the trash keeps piling up, and it's because all of the garbage handling and all of the trash companies is all in the hands of the mafia.
And they're just holding a gun to the head of the city of Naples.
It's like, Naples. Whatever, just let it pile up.
Screw
you.
It's horrible.
Yes.
I've never actually visited Naples, but I know something about it. The city is bisected by a street, sort of like the Strip in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. There's a gorgeous view from one of the hills where you can just see it like slicing down. It's called the Spaccanapoli, the Naples splitter. Which side of the Spaccanapoli do you live on? I thought it was very cool.
Kind of like the cheeks of Naples are parted.
Yeah, that's some lovely imagery.
You're welcome.
I wonder if the Petticoat Lane is the same for whichever city or town the Buns and Burners.
Generally considered the other side, but let's go with that. So, yes, things roll well in the Buns and Burners community of Petticoat Lane as Dick is surveying his, not his domain, but he he's kind of like first among equals, maybe. But
his sort of enthusiasm and a bit of ego, that is considered a valuable thing to have, because we have mostly committees and everybody trying to preserve their own place. So someone who's willing to present themselves as a figurehead, like they've actually figured out quite a good way to deal with that. A very powerful phrase that one might almost call a spell, that I think is responsible for a lot of the success of the Buns and Burners. That's nice, dear.
Oh.
It's such a powerful set of words. Like, anytime Dick Blade accomplishes something, people can just praise him with, "Oh, that's nice, dear."
Like, no, it's kind of like the southern, "Bless your heart, darling," and it's all in the inflection on how it's said. It could be like, it could be entirely beneficial, or you could have just been served a vicious burn.
Exactly, and I think that he's just a little bit clueless enough that he takes it all in stride, and so even when they go,
I mean, he's not Blake Whitecock levels of clueless, but
no, nor is their relationship with him quite so manipulative as poor young Blake Whitecock. But yeah, I think Dick Blade does quite well. And any time that somebody says, "Oh, yeah, that's nice, dear," he still takes it as a compliment.
Yes, especially when it's the co-seat on the Privy Council, Fanny Galore.
Yes. Yes. Who's in Fanny Galore? Yes, that's right. Yeah, I thought that this was interesting that we start off in this like idyllic view of the Buns and Burners, and immediately we're plunged into the power struggle between Fanny Galore and Booby Rod.
Yes, especially in a community like that, the fights are so vicious because the stakes are so low.
Yeah. Especially since like the leader of the Privy Council is not really a thing.
The chairman of the meeting is not the leader of the council.
Having that kind of ceremonial role and prominence, maybe that's something that Dick Blade introduced.
Afraid that as hero god he would be put on too much of a pedestal, and he wanted to make sure that there was enough checks and balances on any influence that he might have on the community.
Do you think that he set up this series of committees?
I mean, he might have steered it a little bit.
Oh, well then I'm a lot more impressed with Dick Blade than I was before. I thought he was, in my reading, I thought he was a bit of a late addition, but the idea that he contributed to all of this is actually really cool. So, obviously, nothing idyllic can last very long, and
you need conflict in a good story.
And I thought initially that the power struggle between Booby Rod and Fanny Galore was going to be it, but very quickly we're introduced to an external force.
Oh yes, it's the aforementioned Crusades. In this case, it's the invasion from the Netherlands.
God. Yeah. Now, as a Dutch person, I was immediately a little miffed that the Netherlands were painted in such a bad light, because the Netherlands has its colonial history, which is a thing, but that is a post.
That's an overseas colonial thing, and very much golden age. I think 1700s.
Well, we call it the Golden Age in the Netherlands. My ancestors in Indonesia have a very different name for it. So, but all of that is like post-medieval and like heading toward the Industrial Age.
Oh yes, very much Renaissance age.
Up until the Middle Ages, like the Netherlands was a horrible place to live. It was a benighted swampland that suffered flooding. I believe it's the only country that the Romans declined to fully invade. Like they made it up about halfway and then they stopped.
Yeah, these rivers make for a nice natural barrier. We're going to stick with this, and we're not going to.
Yeah. Oh, famously, like the city of Utrecht was originally a Roman settlement that was ultrajectum, the end of the road. So
like
all roads lead to Rome, and this one it doesn't go anywhere else. No. This one stops.
To paraphrase Terry Pratchett, not all roads lead to Rome. The roads lead away from Rome. It's just some people are going in the wrong direction.
Oh, bless Sir Terry. So yeah, we have an invasion from the Netherlands, which. And as a Dutch person, like I continue to protest this because I do believe that it's fair to say that up until the late Middle Ages, the Netherlands tended to be the butt of any European power struggle rather than.
I mean, there were little strongholds of local lords,
which would inevitably sink into the swamp. I mean, we don't have any like 12th century castles. We don't have any
12th century,
structures.
No, later than that. But there were some strongholds later on. Especially
absolutely.
in Gelderland. Gelderland, for those who are familiar with the Heath Ledger movie.
What?
The jousting movie.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's right. A Knight's Tale.
A Knight's Tale, that's the one, yes.
The excellent, underappreciated...
Brilliant movie.
Yes, with modern music and We Will Rock You and fucking David Bowie. It was so good.
Was David Bowie in there?
And then the music, like at one point, like there's a chivalrous dance where they do a whole fancy dance. And then
yes,
it sort of evolves into golden years.
Yes. There's a fantastic scene where the guy who plays Chaucer talks up the crowd and everything.
He's a hype man,
and that's where the Ulrich from Gelderland thing comes from.
Oh, that's right.
And then everybody just stays silent, and one of the other guys goes like, "Yeah," and starts applauding, and then the crowd bursts into applause. This is actually one of those not a non-scripted scene. The crowd was supposed to start cheering after he finished his speech, but they're all Czech, and they had no idea what he was saying. And it was just because the actor started prompting and that everybody started bursting out and cheering, and they went like, "Oh yeah, we're going to keep that for the movie."
Oh, that was cool.
Entirely unscripted. So, yes, the invasion from the Netherlands.
Yes, which I guess is a euphemism for an STD almost.
And of course, Dick sees them coming, and they set up camp outside of the Petticoat Lane nudist camp. They kind of want to like move in, but the guards are very strict about like no clothes, nothing.
Yeah, it's really hard to invade some place where you've got to keep your eyes tightly shut, as the knights do.
And of course, Dick goes like, "Oh, this won't do," and he goes to the local Archbishop Fufu.
It was a bit of a weird name. I mean, certainly for a local. I think that's
Frau Fu. Archbishops aren't supposed to be women back then, but you know.
Do you think that was the case?
This whole story, as far as I understand it, has taken place in Dimension Bavaria.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. Like, I saw this as a future history as well, where it was like the third Dark Ages. But okay, so Fufu, I kind of like the idea that this was someone who had seen the sexist ways of the church and was nevertheless compelled to.
Yes, I mean, from their position, they were of course against the whole nudist colony thing. I mean, this is not done. This is not Christian. This is not like you know.
At the same time, being aware that they were throwing the first stone, that this was someone who was I kind of like that, who was binding their chest in order to appear male, possibly not by preference.
I do think we have one of those situations like with the female pope here, just like Archbishop Frau Fu.
What was her name again?
I don't know. I really don't remember.
That was such a... Actually, this is a bigger problem in describing history in general, because there are examples very often of women living as men. The surgeon that we mentioned in a previous episode, whose name now regrettably escapes me, but where it's incredibly hard to tell afterward whether that was someone who identified as male, or whether that was someone who identified as female, who nevertheless like had to occupy a male role in order to succeed in the field.
I mean, it's a bit of a trope in lots of stories as well. The girl leaving home and dressing up as the cabin boy, and which is then oftentimes subverted because like then someone invites out and then everything turns out fine and like they're not required to do so anymore.
Because very often like they maintained this pretense until death. In the case of Barry. Oh, I've forgotten the surname of the surgeon, but like insisted on like not being autopsied and not having the secrets. Like, there was speaking of the Arthurian legend we talked previously, there was one of my favorite stories is the knight who wasn't there. Oh no, that wasn't in Arthurian. That was Il Cavaliere Inesistente, the knight who wasn't there. And it was about this noble knight who always wore his armor, who like when asked to lift his visor, lifted his visor. And the helmet was empty, but it was a knight of extraordinary valor and combat proficiency until like it was on some crusade and like some squire followed the knight who wasn't there, Cavaliere Inesistente, into the forest where the knight was going to relieve himself and saw him undo his breeches and sort of squat down and pee fiercely. That it was a woman who had like eye holes in like the chest piece.
Oh, interesting. That was the who was it? I think it was an American author who wanted to go to Mecca on Hajj. But of course, back in the time, he was like, this was like strictly forbidden. Only Muslims were allowed to. And he actually went and got himself. The Muslim pilgrim. He actually went and got himself circumcised to be able to pass in case it needed to be done. He nearly exposed himself because he, at one point when he was out relieving himself, standing up rather than squatting down, which apparently was the custom even for men around that era.
I didn't know
and
that.
It's like, apparently it was just like, what are you doing? It's like, that's a weird way to stand and pee. It's...
A lot of desert religions are very like hygiene based.
Oh yes, totally.
The whole idea of kosher, the separation of dairy and and other meats.
It all makes very good sense in areas where there's no refrigeration and no bleach.
Or an opportunity to wash regularly.
Yeah.
In the way that I learned in an anthropology class that oral sex is actually quite common, but only among cultures that practice regular bathing. And I think among the buns and burners, that might have been a popular pastime.
Especially with Acorn Andy.
Yes, Acorn Andy. I really enjoyed how a lot of the people here in Petticoat Lane adopted names of a similar vein. Like I was very impressed with their local engineer on the Privy Council, Nutsack Newton,
and his good assistant, Wee Free Willy.
Yes, that's right. Who had an interesting sort of relationship between the two of them and their mutual wife, Clit Eastwood.
Oh God, yes, I heard.
Yeah.
Although I do suspect that she was having a little bit of a shag on the side with Tammy Tadger.
Yeah, that's right. Because I mean, she had a child whose parentage was never named, but the child was named Willie the Kid.
Yes. So. I think him and Wee Free Willy might be related.
No, I think I mean, if there's one set of people who are clearly related, it would have been Lancelot and Lancelittle.
Oh well.
Good Christ. This was I love a book where unexpectedly the two sides, despite coming at it from very different perspectives, find out that they just have a lot in common.
Yes.
That they ultimately approach things from the same direction. So even though the crusade was led by the local abbot Fufu, who very quickly sort of got into the spirit of the buns and burners, and instead of sicking the knights of their crusade,
yes,
on the local revelers, actually came to embrace this community and sort of tried to join Petticoat Lane and rename themselves as Vulva Voom.
Yes, I mean those were the accords of the Cyprian Fountain.
The Cyprian Fountain. Now, yes. I've got to say, as much fun as this whole book has been, I actually don't completely get the Cyprian Fountain.
It's another vague reference to genitalia.
Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, okay. So much like the contingent of the Crusaders who stayed behind as the Order of the Purple Helmet.
Yes, that's the one. Cool. Weren't they the ones that kept going? I'm pretty sure that
the ones that kept going.
Yeah, they went like, "Oh, stop this all. We're going to go on with the crusade," and we can't. I mean, that's essentially how the story resolves. It's like they go around, they see everybody getting on and going like, "Screw this! This is not why we went on a crusade. We did not go on a crusade to get along with the locals. We are going on to the next village, and we are continuing to the Holy Land."
That's right, and we'll do that thing that all major religions have to do at one point. We'll have a good old-fashioned schism, and we'll paint our helmets purple, and now people will take us seriously.
That's the one. And it works up to this massive conflict, and all parties suddenly start to realize that they have far too much in common. And it's an amazing way to resolve a story, I think.
I thought it certainly was. Because even this, I think I'm coming around. You're completely correct that the purple helmets who continued with this campaign of sexism and misogyny and anti-good timeism, they find themselves a hero.
They're outclassed. They realize it, and they're going to go like, "We're going to forget about this passage. We know we lost half our army here, and we're just going to like make up some story about like the locals being vicious."
Yes, exactly. And they elect their own hero, much in the style of Dick Blade. Testicles, who now he will definitely be taken seriously as an icon of piety.
He kind of had the same problem as Achilles did, but in a different area.
Yeah, God. Yeah.
There must have been an uncomfortable dip in the potion, but you know.
What a fucking good book this was. I mean, almost nothing happens, and it's mostly names. Do you want to name some of these cool-ass names that some of these characters have? I mean, it starts out with Fanny Galore. I was totally into that.
She was a very prominent member of the Privy Council.
Very prominent member, that's right. And of course, Booby Rod and Fufu and...
I do think that my favourite scene of the book was when Dick goes... Yeah, it's when Dick is like, when he's in the dumps, he has no idea what to do. So he goes and he seeks out the bald-headed hermit.
I love this because that's also the only scene where his fucking, what do we say, the singing spear really comes into it.
Yes.
Like, with the bald
it's a fine-tuned instrument.
It certainly is, and he plays it well. Jesus King, this is the best book we've ever read.
It's been quite an entertaining book.
I only wish that we could convey to the readers at home how much fun this has been to review. So
I think they have a good idea.
How are we going to rate this book?
Oh dear. That is a very good question. Let's see.
Because we've got we have a commitment to cover my ass. That's the podcast we're doing. We have a commitment.
Well, there's been a bit of that going on in the book as well, but it's...
10 out of 10. I think this is
absolutely. It's like
this unquestionably. This is such a winner. Richard Blade by the Jewel of Tharn. What the fuck was
Jeffrey
Tharn,
Lord.
by the way?
I guess I don't know.
I mean, there's even some shit on the front about what the.
There's a weird Stonehenge in the background, and it's like, and it's just like Fanny Galore, just like admiring Richard's.
That's right. I hope
jewels, I suppose. Maybe it was his tarnished jewels.
Well, I hope we do a Dick Blade book one of these days again, and thank you again to Ex-Indiv for contributing the missing page, and thank you obviously to our good friends over at GoodShowSir for
suggesting this.
It's just been fantastic. Onwards and upwards, as I think is the motto of the Buns and Burners.
Absolutely, very much upwards.
What do we have in store for our readers
really
next
rose
week?
to the occasion.
What do we have in store for our readers next week, please?
Yes, next week's book is by John G. Huge. It's his wondrous compendium, Celtic Sex Magic for Couples, Groups, and Solo Practitioners.
Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed, but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
Celtic Sex Magic. This was a good book. This was such a good book. I can't believe it. Then we wound up on the same paradigm despite not having. It's so fucking much high five.